Hey, like, what was his initial reaction when you told him that, I used to be a guy? Well, not that I used to be a guy, but that I'm intersexual. Like, was he just kind of like confused, like most people probably would be when you drop that kind of information, or?
Um, when I initially told him was through email, and I do not know what his reaction was. And beyond that, I feel like his reaction, that's his story to tell. I can, like I've always said, the reason, in the beginning, I protected him for a long time. I always used to say the reason we're not together has nothing to do with me being intersex. It has nothing to do with the publicity. That's his story to tell. It was on Howard Stern that he just wouldn't let it go. And I finally said, he was cheating on me. That's why I ended things with him. But, and then later on I found out he was screwing the dog walker too. I don't know her real name. She ended up selling her story. Her and I had a conversation through Facebook, and she's the only other person that has that story. It was a very intimate conversation between two girls that had both been with the same guy. She was not with him when I was with him. She dated him at a different time. The media has made her out to be, they've called her mistress and all these different things. She dated him when he was quote unquote single. Whether or not he was faithful to her, I highly doubt. But in her mind, she was the one and only, just the way I thought I was the one and only. And so, but the difference is the dog walker knew about me, knew about Wynn Murray when he was with her, knew about Amy Desi when he cheated on her with Wynn, and then here's Nicole that knew about me, probably knew about the dog walker. See, that breaks girl code to me. If I didn't know about other women, but when women know about you and still lay down with a man, I find that disgusting, and I find it wrong, because then you're enabling him to cheat. And I just find that sick. And so when people are like, how do you feel about their engagement? I think it's a farce. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I think it's real. Do I think he loves her as much as he could love anybody? Probably. He probably thinks this is the right thing to do because his handlers have told him this is the right thing to do. Because I come from a background in crisis management, I bet the farm that she's on payroll with Octagon, and that this is all orchestrated, from the Thanksgiving Day pictures to the pictures of him in the Aquasphere trunks at Christmas, because he never did anything like that before on social media, but they're trying to paint, apple pie and baseball to America.
So it's almost like damage control, like they're trying to
absolutely
make everything look like it's all
absolutely
kosher. But let me ask you a serious question on this.
Okay.
Do you not think that it would be fair? I mean, you guys are intimate. You've admitted to having unprotected sex. Don't you feel that he almost deserved, like, a phone call? Like, you broke this information via email. Like,
I had no way to call him. He was in rehab when
oh, okay. So the
I had
report
to
came
tell
out while
him.
he was in rehab.
Correct.
Okay.
The story was coming out November 19th. I told him it was either November 10th or 11th, and I tried to call him through Drew, but Drew wouldn't make it happen. So the only other option I had was to email him. I would have loved to have flown to Arizona and told him face to face, because I feel like I owed him that, and I still cared about him. Even though I knew about Nicole at that point, I did not know about the other girl yet. Because he wasn't there, he was gone, he's going through rehab, it softened the blow of what he did to me. And I know that sounds like I'm a fool, but you're in a different state than if this all happens and the guy's right there in front of you, or you live together. He's gone for 7 weeks, so it made it hard to be angry at him because there was no one to get angry at, if that makes any sense. And then when he got out, did I have contact with him? Yes. Am I willing to talk about what that contact was? I'm not, because, at the end of the day, there's still part of me that cares about him on some level. You know, people want to say, I've tarnished his career, I've done this, that, or the other thing. No, I have not. I am a woman. You know, people can make fun of me, my looks, all these different things. But the reality is, I modeled, I've done a XXX film, I'm on the cover of magazines and newspapers. I'm not an unattractive woman. I've worked in the business world most of my life, and you know when you look good that you have an advantage in business. You know, even as a sign language interpreter, I got jobs that put me on television, and I got those jobs over other people because of the way I looked. I've been aware of my looks my whole life. You know, I've dated high-profile people my whole life. That's why I find this funny. Michael Phelps is just one of many, but my dating life is over 25 years. I went out with Anthony Hardaway from the Orlando Magic. I went out with Derek Strong from the Orlando Magic, Donald Royal. I used to date Mike Soroka, the pitcher for the Chicago White Sox. I dated Ed Smith from the Atlanta Falcons and then the Detroit Lions. I dated Lenny McGill, who started with the Atlanta Falcons and then went to the Green Bay Packers. This is my social circle. I used to work in design for Hughes Building Supply.
But do you worry that people are saying, like, I mean, you dated all these high-profile people, and then naturally people want to come to the conclusion that this is your shtick. This is what you do. You go after high-profile people. You know, the word is a cleat chaser, a gold digger. Like, how do
I've always had my own money. I came from money. I've always worked. No matter who I've dated, no, I've never been dependent on a man, ever. You know, do you get better gifts maybe when you date someone like that? Absolutely. But the reality of it is, it was my social circle. In Orlando, my friends are wives and girlfriends of either other players or pillars of business. My best friends are like managers of high-end brands. You know, I worked in design, so I specialized in lighting. I worked in Creative Homes, Street of Dreams. I used to work for Sterling Sotheby's International Realty. I was head of PR and their concierge division. This was my social circle. I spoke at Chamber of Commerce events. I voted proxies for Florida Hospital Network. I mean, this was my world. This was my social circle. I'm 5'8", I'm blonde, I have big boobs. Who do you think I'm going to attract in a room?
Now, but like you say, you're with all these high-profile people, and how many, you mentioned a lot of known people there, and like how many of them knew you were intersex, or is this something that up until the Michael
I've never
Phelps
told
thing,
any of them.
So
None of them knew.
Oh, okay.
None of them knew. And I mean, you know, at first I was like, I would listen to when people would say, why are you shaming them or outing them? I'm doing no such thing. And for you to think that, shame on any of you. Because the reality is, they saw a woman, they were with a woman, there is nothing about me that isn't woman. You know, even if you were, for argument's sake, even if someone was transgender, you're looking at a woman, you're attracted to a woman. Regardless of what's between their legs, no gay man is going to look at someone transgender and be attracted to them because they're going to see a woman. They want to see a man. So when a guy is heterosexual, he sees someone that looks like a woman, that does not make him gay, wrong, anything, regardless of what's between her legs. She is defining who she is. Now come to me, I am sitting on pussy. I'm sitting on a vagina. I've had it for decades. You know, I have a XXX video out there. You know, I think if it did not say world's first intersex porn star on it, someone would just watch my video and be like, oh, this is the chick that was with Michael Phelps. I don't think they would be like, oh, is that a man? You know, because the intersex thing is there, I've been attacked up one side and down side. Oh, look at her face. You can tell that's a man. Oh, look at her hands. Oh, this is wrong. That's wrong. You know, I'm modeled, you know, so you can say what you want to say, but I have lived as a woman my entire life. I have gay friends. They will tell you we go out to a gay bar. I'm just the straight chick that's at the gay bar with my gay friends. I've even played with people that thought, oh, are you a tranny or something like that? And I'll scratch my crotch and be like, oh, my balls itch. And it's a joke. I don't have any experience other than being a woman. Until this happened and I had to own the label intersex, I've never used it. I've never lived by it. I didn't use the term hermaphrodite. I didn't use I didn't use anything. I've always said I was a girl, a teenager, or a woman. That's why I have no problem bringing attention to these issues, but I really don't feel like I'm the expert or the person to talk about them, because it's not my experience. It's not my world. I don't feel like I can bring something that I've always lived as a girl. My dating life, my girlfriends, my friends, they know me as just Taylor, their girlfriend. Since all this has happened, I've only had 2 men in my entire life that have walked out of it. And one of them, he's married with 2 children. I get it. He could have handled it a little differently the way he walked out of my life. But I do understand why he did it and not wanting to be attached to all this negative and chaos and fame. But the other person that walked out of my life pissed me completely off because during the 2 years we dated off and on, he cheated on me once. I broke up with him, went back to him. He cheated on me again. But I think we all have that person in our life that's that love that when you're not in a relationship, you run to them. There's always that comfort level, that, I don't want to say a booty call, but, there's that person you go to. So when my most recent marriage was falling apart and ended and we separated, I ran to him. And when I did Howard Stern, because of the way and I did call him, he wouldn't take my call. It pissed me off. So I outed him. And I'm like, I did out him. I will own that statement. So I was like, yeah, I dated Calvin Moses from the New York Jets. I wanted him to be whatever. And that was wrong on my part. It's not wrong that I put out there that I dated him, but the reason I was doing it and why I was doing it was wrong. And I am sorry for that. But no man should ever feel embarrassed or ashamed that they dated me. None. And, let's be real here. I have some really, really good pussy. And, no man has ever walked away from me or left me because of sex. What's the black comedian? Marlon Wayans. When I was on Sway 45, he called in and he's like, Cadillac pussy, gotta talk to you, because I thought I was off mic. And so I'm joking with all of them. We were drinking and I made this comment, I'm sitting on the Cadillac of pussies. And that shows my age. And they were like, well, why didn't you say Ferrari or Lamborghini? Well, I grew up with grandparents, so a luxury vehicle for them was a Cadillac. And so Marlon Wayans called in. He's like, I just had to talk to Cadillac pussy. And so that became this funny thing that happened. But, I've done a porn. Anybody that's seen it, I'm good at what I do. I'm a good lay.
Now, how did that come about, though? Because, obviously, people are gonna go ahead and make assumptions. And they're saying she's just trying to cash in. Not to cut you off. I mean, I'd love to hear about Cadillac pussy. But, people are saying, she's just trying to make a quick buck. Now, how did, were you approached? On what made you decide, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this? That's not just something people just decide in one day.
I did not approach them. They approached me. In the beginning, I got approached by everybody. Anything, gentlemen's magazines, porn, I got tons of those kind of offers. To all my haters, just so you know, they do not come running to you if you're ugly to do any of these things. But my publicist, Lainey Spicer, she's like, you're just not right for that. Because I'm an emotional person. Anybody that's known me, I've had some meltdowns on social media, Facebook, but I've done this in other relationships. The difference was it was just friends and family seeing it, not the world. And my career, after September 30th, within 5 weeks, I had no career. Because, like I was saying before, as a sign language interpreter, being invisible is crucial. You can't stand 3.5 feet away from the president and have the press corps in front of you and you be the news because you're now the girlfriend to the world of the most decorated Olympian on the planet. It just isn't going to happen. So by the first week in November, I had no job. I had no income. I have a degree. I have licensure for interpreting in 3 states, well, actually 6 states. I couldn't work anywhere. And so the reality is in November, I pawned a $16,000 Rolex to pay my rent because I have quite a jewelry collection because I had too much pride to go home to my family and beg. By December, I'm like, what am I going to do? Even though I was so overexposed and I was on Entertainment Tonight, E-News, radio shows, everything, you don't get paid for that stuff because normally someone's promoting something. I'm trying to save my name and reputation, which was truly futile at that point. And so in December, we get a call from Jackie, the PR person for Stephen and Marcy, and then she wants to set up a meeting with me and Stephen, and my publicist, Lainey, she's like, you should at least take the meeting and see what you're worth. And so I took the meeting, and they wanted to fly me out there, and because I was very apprehensive. You're talking to someone that taught Sunday school, kindergarten through 4th grade, sign language to these kids, and then after 6 weeks, they would interpret a Bible verse to the congregation. I traveled with Worship Under the Stars. I traveled with Governor Rick Scott in Florida doing town hall meetings. I've interpreted for almost every Pentecostal preacher that's well known in the United States. I was very firmly planted in the church, and I worked in one of the most conservative jobs ever. That should have been the shtick for my porn. Let that be for the record. But they wanted to fly me out there to try to reassure me. I met with some directors. I met with some porn stars. I saw how things were done. They were very like family and willing to adhere to my demands as far as what I would do, wouldn't do. And initially, I wanted to do like Cinemax, After Dark kind of thing. And then the night before, I actually shot for them. They said to me, if you do softcore, it's going to be novelty. You'll have a good run. But at the end of the day, people that look at porn, buy porn, to put it bluntly, they want to see fucking. And that's how it was put to me. And so I'm not an inhibited person. I'm pretty confident. So the next day on the set, I just said 2 tears in a bucket and fuck it. And, all caution went to the wind. But the movie truly does tell the story of my sex life with Michael sequentially. Everything that we ever did in any of our sexual escapades, which there's not one time that I can honestly say that Michael fucked me. It was always intimate, loving, but still fun and erotic and sometimes aggressive, hard. I mean, it's not like it was missionary or anything. Anybody that sees Going for the Gold will see that. But, I was at a point in my life where I had to reinvent myself. And, that's what I did. And this is what was coming my way. So they offered me money that I just could not refuse. We say everybody has a price. Well, I would have probably taken less. But Stephen and Marcy made me an incredible deal, and I took it, and we shot 344 minutes of raw footage. It was edited down to 138 minutes, and, what people don't know is there's actually going to be a second film that's going to be released at some point.
How many films did you agree to sign on for, or is it just
Going for the Gold, I've never seen the commercial version, which I know is funny. I've seen an edited, like, director's cut. But the commercial version on DVD is like an hour. And then what you can see on Vivid.com, I'm not sure how that works. But there's there's another film that has another solo masturbation scene, and it's very BDSM, 50 Shades of Grey, being enlightened by my version of Christian Grey, my co-star Ty Roderick.
okay?
Still following the theme of Michael Phelps and going for the gold and everything about it. And, you know, I've said in interviews that 90% of what's on that footage is what really happened in our life. There's some tongue-in-cheek stuff, like we kind of play with the whole halftime sex thing. But the reality was, whenever we watch football, he's texting Ray Rice, Ray Lewis during the games. You know, all that's in the film. The 10% that's not real, that's left up to the viewer. I will never say what that 10% is. You know, if Michael wants to come out and tell the world what is real and what isn't, you know, the thing about it is, you and me both know, you being in the industry, a lot of the radio and TV that I've done would have never happened had I not been vetted. And a lot of those shows do pre-interviews. They verify everything. They've seen proof, emails, phone logs, you know, you name it, they've seen it. They've seen my medical records. So anybody that wants to say I'm a liar, that I'm this, that I'm that, they can say it all they want. I don't owe that much of an explanation to the world, because there's parts of my life that are still private. They don't need to see all my conversations with Michael. They don't need to know everything we talked about. They don't need to know my medical records. If you don't believe what I'm saying, I don't really care. You know, you don't pay my bills. 3Fs. If you're not feeding me, fucking me, or financing me, you have no right to tell me what to do with my life. And I would tell that to my father. And let me tell you, my dad, that was the hardest conversation out of all of this that I've ever had, is telling my dad this. You know, who wants to tell their father this? But, you know, my dad, he's like, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And my dad's kind of like he doesn't play by the rules, never has. My dad's, you know, anybody that's in the horse business will tell you his nickname's the Fox, but he'll tell you to go fuck yourself in 2 seconds. And when I said to him, I'm like, Dad, please don't talk to the media, because they just want a sound bite, and anything you say off is what they'll go with. And he's like, fuck those cocksuckers. He's like, if I don't know who's calling, I'm not answering the phone. That's my dad. My dad loves me.
So
and
I was going to say, we had questions from fans too.
Okay.
I don't know if you have some time if you want to answer
I'm
some
good.
of them. I don't know how. Are you okay with timing, or?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it.
All right, cool. I didn't want to cut you off, but I didn't know how much time you had.
No.
I got some people that had sent in questions, so people were posting questions via Twitter and on the website and whatnot. And one of the questions is, someone had sent me in a question saying that they had noted that you had been married multiple times and divorced, and they want to know if you could talk about that a little bit, like.
Yeah, sure.
How many times have you been married, and, you know, what was the deal with all that? And
an interesting story. I've always said I was married 5 times, and you know, because I never acknowledged any part of my past. But the reality is, when my name was Paige Victoria Whitney, I was married then too. And so now that my whole life is out there, I do acknowledge that. So technically, I've been married 6 times and divorced. My first marriage was a marriage that, I don't know, I was young, I was 19, it shouldn't have happened. It is what it is. That's probably about all I want to say about that. I don't want to say who he is, and I doubt highly that anybody can find out, because everything from that part is sealed. It's enough to know it exists. My first husband, that I consider my first husband, Leroy, I married when I was like 28 years old. We got married to save our relationship. He had cheated on me. He was a little bit physical, and we thought, well, he told me by getting married and moving to Colorado, it was going to save us. And I was so in love. We'd gone through counseling at my church. My pastor married us with apprehension, I might add. But for about a year, things were great. And then I realized he was trying to cheat behind my back. And the more I confronted him, the more abusive it got. I mean, we went through an Article 15 with the Army because I caught him with a girl in the barracks. I went down a flight of stairs. I mean, I went through a lot with him. I went through a lot of physical abuse, but he's sorry for what he did. He's not that man today. Him and I have made peace. Husband number 2 was the guy that I was with before husband number 1, and it was a total rebound. I didn't want to be alone. I was raised by grandparents, and I was educated well to marry well, and I felt like without a man, without being a Mrs. Somebody, I was nothing. So I immediately married Bruce. Bruce was a wonderful man. Love him. His family is amazing. I'm still close to all of them. My nieces and nephews love them to death. They're still on all my social media. Bruce ended up dying of diabetes. He went into a diabetic shock, went into a coma, no one was around, and he passed away after we were divorced. But him and I stayed friends. Towards the end of his life, I used to go get him, and he went to church with me every week. He became friends with my church family. I had the car accident after 9/11, November 19th of 2001. I was pronounced dead. I went through 18 hours of brain surgery. My whole face and head are reconstructed. I had 3 epidural hematomas. I fractured my skull, broke my eye socket, broke my jaw, paralyzed my right vocal cord, fractured my skull. I fractured my C4, 5, and 6. I had an open book break of my pelvis. I went through 10 months of physical rehabilitation to learn to walk and talk again, 2 years of reconstructive surgery. The guy that was in the vehicle with me when the accident happened, Will, went off to war because 9/11 had happened. He asked me to marry him when he came back, and I think he asked me out of guilt that he felt because he wasn't driving when that accident happened. We got married, but because of war and them deploying him nonstop, we were probably only physically in the same place 4 or 5 months out of a 2.5, 3-year marriage. And we divorced in 2004. And, that was the end of that. And then in 2004, in a 30-day period, my appendix ruptured. 3 hurricanes hit Florida. I got laid off from my job with Sterling Sotheby's International Realty. My left implant ruptured. My divorce became final. It was just a shitty time in my life. And I was working for a trading company at the time doing on-site coordination. I was training on-site coordinators, and then the company was going in a different direction. And because of my accident at the time, I could not get insurance unless I worked for a company and got a group plan. I could not get private insurance because of pre-existing conditions because of all my injuries. So there was a gentleman at work that offered to marry me so I could have insurance. People on the internet have been like, oh my God, that's fraud, that's this, that's that, taxpayers. No, it's not. He had work insurance. There was no taxpayer anything. We got married, and I had insurance for maybe 2 or 3 months. And then the marriage was never consummated, never took his name, never anything. That was husband number 4. Kind of forgot about him, to be quite honest, and it wasn't until 2007 when I reconnected with my childhood love, high school sweetheart that I'd known since 3rd grade on Facebook, Patrick, that things started going romantic. We got engaged during the Super Bowl in February of 2008, and then it's like, oh shit, I'm still married. I didn't know where David was, and so I had to put an ad in the paper. for like so many weeks to provide the court with proof that I tried to find him. Finally, we found him through his father. He signed off, got divorced, and then a month later, I married Patrick, who was literally my fairy tale. I have journals back when I was 12 or 13 years old saying that I was going to marry him, and he was my fairy tale. To this day, even though we're divorced, I still think of him as my best friend. He is the love of my life. I miss him. He knew about Michael and I from day one. Him and I still talked. We were still friendly. He knew I was dating Michael from the very beginning. Him and my two best friends, you know, because my relationship with Michael was private for 6 weeks until the night of the DUI. And so that's the story of my husband.
That's a long story of husbands. Couple more questions that I have here. One person it was posted on the website, and it was a little confusing, and you've probably already seen it. It was talking about how does she deny that she's broken several federal laws harassing members of the Phelps family, and I don't even really want to get into that because I replied to that, and I was like, I haven't seen any official police reports, and I would assume had you broke official federal law, there would be a warrant for your arrest. That hasn't happened, so that's
right.
my knowledge.
I know what they're.
So.
You know, me and Hillary have had some Twitter wars. You know, like any breakup, there's been times where I've been angry with Michael, and I've said things on social media that you say in anger. You know, I get it, but the people that are saying this are people that love him, people that know him as Michael Phelps, the Olympian. They do not know him as a man, as a friend, as a person. And even if they do know him socially, it doesn't mean they know him intimately. And I get their dedication. I don't understand their blunt hatred towards me. But the reality of it is, me and Hillary have had some real go-rounds. Her and Michael posted some stuff back in, it was either December or January, that was very offensive to me. And it's like, you know what? If you're going to come at me publicly. Don't post it through a quote or a picture. I called Drew at Octagon, and both posts were taken down within an hour. And because at the end of the day, Octagon's probably very grateful that there's a lot of the story of me and Michael that I'm not telling because it's nobody's business. But, you know, have I broken federal laws? No. We have the right to be angry at people and say things any day of the week. I was in a relationship with Michael. You know, let's put it bluntly. I've had Michael inside of me. You can't be any more intimate than that. You know, how dare someone that doesn't even know him tell me about my life? I've joked online in the past, and I'm like, oh, you were there? Why didn't you say hello? You know, why didn't you toss his salad or something while he was fucking me? You know, because you get so irritated, like they act like they know him. You don't know him. You're a fan. You know, I was a fan when I was a teenager. I was going to marry Kirk Cameron. I had his posters all over my room. But when I became an adult, I put childish things away. And, you know, yeah, there's people that I think Ryan Reynolds is the best thing next to sliced bread. Do I pretend to know his life, his sex life, anything of the sort? No, I don't. If he did something wrong or his girlfriend came after him, I'd be like, sucks being him. I wouldn't jump in and think that I'm the expert on anything just because I love acting and I love Ryan Reynolds. But they say really mean things, and that's what they're talking about, and they can say whatever they want. Hillary's a bitch, and I tell Hillary she's a bitch to her face. You know, Hillary knows the truth. You know, I can tell you anything you want to know about Michael Phelps' house, from where silverware is to glasses, sheets, towels, where he stores stuff. I can tell you the entire layout of it. I can tell you where his socks are. I can tell you what pill is his favorite pill. You know, just there's nothing about him that I really do not know. And her and I have had private conversations. She pissed me off so much that I posted one of our conversations publicly, took it down immediately. But these internet trolls capture everything you do instantly. And these are the things they're referencing. And they think that I'm a liar. Nothing I say is true. So everything I do is attacking them. The reality is they're attacking me. They're bullying me. Hillary uses a close friend of hers to try to come onto my social media, whatever. You know, if that's all you guys have to do with your day, fine, so be it. You know, I've interpreted at pretty much every three-letter agency in the district. I would love for any member of the Phelps family to take me to court, because then once and for all, everything that I've said since day one would become public record. All the proof would become public record, and then all these people that want to hate on me would know Michael Phelps backwards and forwards, and they would know way more than they ever wanted to know about him. And you and I and anybody educated know that's never going to happen. You know, if someone would just think for one brief moment, if in the very beginning, before any of this story really got legs, I was lying, I would have been sued, cease and desisted, gag ordered, whatever. He's got an army of lawyers, team of people. They can't do anything to me. Unlike the other women in his life that have signed confidentiality agreements and non-disclosures, I have signed no such thing. I have never lied about him. I really don't say bad things about him. You know, did he cheat on me? Yes. Is that bad? Yes. He did it. I didn't. Not my fault, but yet I'm the bad guy. You know, I was worried about, did he give me a disease? The reality of it is, when all this came out, I was petrified because I'd been having unprotected sex with this guy. You know I'm safe now. I even posted on social media, know your status, get tested, and I tagged him in it because he put my life in jeopardy. I didn't know he was sleeping with these other women, and I don't know if he's strapped up or not. You know, I don't know whether they were jump-offs or what they were. I don't really care at this point, to be quite honest. So that's what they're talking about.
All right. Well, he goes on to say in the quoting about if she woke up alone at home the morning after she tried to kill herself, why did she post notes like she was the doctor's? Now, I don't know all the backstory, so I don't know what this person's referring to.
That's an easy story to tell you, and I will be honest, I haven't talked a lot about it because it's personal and it is a rough time. I did Howard Stern on January 6th. It was an amazing show. Got a lot out there. It wasn't like comedy. It was kind of like us talking. It was really an opportunity to tell the truth on a grand scale. And then on February 23rd, when he announced the engagement of Michael and Nicole, he went on in a 10-second clip to call me a dude, a he, she, an it, a man, gross, and implied that I was a liar. And I've never been so hurt in my life. Then
this is by Howard Stern.
Correct. I didn't hear it because I normally listen to the shows during the reruns Thursday through Sunday. And what ended up happening is on social media, the people that I'm probably sure are behind these anonymous posts and are my haters online used that quote, posting it everywhere. Howard Stern is against her, calling her a dude. No, she's a man. She's a liar. And then I finally heard it, called my publicist. I wanted to put out a press release. I was angry. And my publicist is like, it's not a big deal. That's his shtick. He's shocked. And
so
I'm like, you know what?
He's talking to you during this interview. He's like, everything's cool. And then it was like after everything was said and done, he was just like, she's a fucking
This
liar.
is a month and a half later.
Okay.
This is way after my interview.
So it's kind of
my relationship with him is amazing. He actually sent me artwork that he had done himself as a thank you for being on the show. He sent me, ironically enough, when all this happened, I'm arguing with my publicist. She'll tell you this. Because I said to her, you've never had to fight and defend your womanhood. You've never had to stand there and defend your relationships. You've never had every man that you've ever been with not want to own you anymore. I said, don't pretend to know what that 10 seconds felt like for me. And because she was defending him, it was tears are just rolling down my face. I was so devastated, and I felt like everything that I've done, all the educating of intersex, gender challenges, trying to make people understand there's no scandal here, it all felt pointless and worthless in that moment. I felt like he took the hour and something that I was on his show and reduced it to nothing. And in that moment, I wanted to die. And I took 90 Ambien, I took 20 Xanax, I took whatever was left of hydrocodone. I laid down. By the time I was posting anything on social media, I was already kind of out of it. I said, I love you to the people that I loved, and I went to sleep. I didn't want to be rescued. I wasn't crying out for help. I wanted to die. And I woke up the next morning, and I shouldn't have. What I took should have put down 2 damn horses. But, you know, I died in that car accident. I was brought back. There was another suicide attempt in November because in the beginning of all this, I felt like it would be easier to die than live my life out loud. I couldn't fathom exes, world, friends, everybody knowing my life. And the reason I didn't go to the hospital, I work for the hospital. I would have been able to talk my way out of anything. 2 of my closest friends are doctors. One of them wanted to 5150 and put me in the hospital. I've made no bones about this. I was diagnosed in 2000 as borderline personality disorder, which simply means I was a victim of sexual abuse from a very young age till I was almost a teenager. And it's a coping mechanism. You never develop your own personality. So you learn to adapt and become whatever people need you to be to survive or be safe. And so because of that, you always find validation in other people, but then you think you're not worthy of them, so you push them away. The sign for that in sign language is come here, and with the other hand, push away. I mean, it's literal. And so because I have that, regular therapy would not work with me because I would manipulate a therapist. So what the world does not understand is I am under therapy right now for things I've gone through. I have been free and clear of anorexia for over 20 plus years, and in the midst of all this happening, it came back because I lost control of my life. So I ended up restricting food, not even realizing what I was doing. I went from a size 6 to a 0. I got down to 115 pounds, and I was almost an organ failure, yellow skin. I mean, this has been very bad all the way around. Have I dealt with everything properly? No. I don't think anybody can understand what pressures I've been under different days because of different reasons. What Howard did to me hurt me on so many levels, and whether it was meant to be shocking or funny, it was hurtful and it was disgusting and it was inappropriate. I don't see him going out there for shock using the N-word, and for him to call me anything outside of who and what I am, to me is equal to saying to a black person the N-word. It's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable for anybody on the gender spectrum for what he did. That's the reason I was devastated. And, you know, what I did was wrong. I shouldn't have done it. But I was under doctor care. They just were at my house. I didn't have to go to the hospital. I have a therapist. I have a nutritionist. I have a DBT therapist. And I go to support group meetings for anorexia. And anybody that deals with any kind of addiction issues and anorexia, you have an issue with food, knows that any kind of support group works. And so I am where I need to be. I was in a moment of panic, manic crisis. And, you know, I didn't even need to necessarily tell the world this, but, you know, if this can help somebody, which I hope it will, I'm glad. You know, that's why I talk about things that are personal. These people are saying these things and asking these questions to try to make me look like a liar or a fraud. The next day, I had to resume life. Regardless of what's going on, I still have a film, 2 books. I have another book coming, a film coming. Life goes on. And could I have stayed in a bad state forever? Yes, but I just didn't have the option. I do have a living will, and I do have a last will and testament because I've already died once. So I know it's possible to happen again. I have no lining around my brain. I have titanium pressure bolts that hold my skull together, titanium rods that connect my brain stem to my spinal column. I have a rebuilt right eardrum. I have a silicone implant in my right vocal cord that allows me to talk. If I was to ever have a head injury again, I don't want to be a vegetable. I don't want to be in a wheelchair. I don't want some existence that isn't life. So I do have a living will, and those are things that were talked about on Facebook, and that's what they're referencing. It doesn't take away from what I did just because I didn't go to an emergency room or friends come and do that to me. But I can assure you that my friends are doctors, and, I was getting the care that was needed, and I'm still getting the care that's needed. And, I'm in a better place, and I have a better support group of friends around me. That's why I'm in the process of moving back to Florida to be around friends that I've known my whole life and family, so that I do have a more core base support system and positivity around me.
Well,
so hopefully that answers their question.
Well, like I said to you prior to us doing the interview, I knew that we were going to have some fun with this, so I don't want to leave the interview feeling on a downer, so I want you to go ahead and promote these books and all these upcoming projects you got going on, because you've taken the time. We've almost talked for almost 2 hours talking about your whole ordeal, and I appreciate you coming on. So I want to give you this time to go ahead and promote whatever you got going on, books, appearances, movies, because there are people out there who are fans of yours, and you know this. And, so for every hater out there, there's 2 people out there that like you. So go ahead and let people know, all the great stuff you got coming up.
Okay, awesome. Well, obviously you can find out anything and everything about me at TaylorLianneChandler.com, and my middle name is Lianne, and that connects you to everything. But Going for the Gold is out on Vivid.com, and then I have a book that starts with when I got divorced from Patrick, becoming an interpreter in D.C., how I met Michael on Tinder, our relationship, leading up to making of the film and the behind the scenes of the film, because most people probably don't know what it's like to be on a movie set of any kind. And so the making of the Going for the Gold kind of takes you in that place. And then for the Super Bowl, I wrote Super Bowl Surprise, which is an erotic, it's part of a Super Bowl anthology. It's an erotic book, and it's based on my life. The characters are people I know. I'm referencing things that really happened, but, I'm taking some creative liberty with it because it is fiction. I was working on NBA All-Star Weekend, but then Michael and Nicole got engaged, and the timing just seemed wrong to release that erotic book, but it will come out. And then this summer, my autobiography will come out, and it will come out as an ebook and as a hard cover book, and it will tell my whole life story. It will be start to finish, but it's not going to just be an autobiography. I think it's important that it be kind of a self-help. I want it to have some input from doctors and professionals so that, there's a mechanism in it to kind of take people from the low points in my life to bring them back up to the positive so that, there's that ability to go not make the mistakes that I made. Because I think that's important. And then, we're in talks with a few different networks to make a made-for-TV movie. I do not want to sell the rights outright, and that's kind of why it's stalled, because I want to be a consultant, and I want it to be a true story. And when you sell the rights outright, They get all this creative freedom. And because I live under such scrutiny now, I want it to be my story. And then in June, my CoverGirl art piece comes out at the Scott Fisher Gallery in Baltimore. Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, is one of the other CoverGirls. I'm so excited to meet her. She's my idol, and she will be there. John Waters will be there. A lot of rock stars that Scott Fisher has done covers for. He's a former rock star. You can find out information about that at scottfishergallery.com. It's going to be an exciting event open to the public on June 13th in Baltimore from 7 to 11. It's all on the website. And then there's going to be another film at some point that comes out for Vivid that's going to be exciting, and I think people are going to like it even better than the first one, if that's possible. And in addition to that, last week I signed an exclusive with Vivid, and I have my own channel now at vividcams.com, Taylor Lianne Chandler, and it provides the Michael Phelps experience. So if you love what I show the world in Going for the Gold, you can experience it live with me on vividcams.com. And I think, and then of course I'm on Twitter and Facebook and everything else, and you can connect to all of that from TaylorLeanneChandler.com. All the links are at the bottom. Twitter is probably the thing I'm most active on, and that's realTaychaTLC.com. It's just the first three letters of my first name, last name, and my initials, which luckily are TLC.
There you have it. Well, we thank you for calling in and explaining yourself. I know you didn't have to explain yourself, but people wanted to hear it, and I wanted to hear it because I didn't know much about it. I heard the story, just on Twitter and TMZ, and I didn't know much about it. And then I was educated on a lot of things about what intersex is. So I thank you for that, and I appreciate you informing me, so I don't feel as stupid whenever I approach someone who might be intersex.
I'm glad that we had this time to really talk things out and it wasn't rushed. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. This is Taylor Lianne Chandler, Vivid International Porn Star on MMB Radio, the fabulous Mix Master B.